Hi, I'm Mackenzie, and this is Dr. Scott Christie, and welcome to another episode of Cheer District's Injury Prevention Series. Today we're going to be talking about the core area, so the abdominal area and the lower back. So, Dr. Scott, can you tell me a little bit more about the common injuries we see in these areas for a cheerleader?
Yeah, so basically, when we're dealing with the back, the big areas that we're concerned about is typically the spine. Right. So the low back area. So the common injuries that we're going to see would be a disc injury, which goes between each one of the vertebrae, and usually happens if you're getting into a forward bending position. So if you're trying to catch a stunt and you're constantly bending forward, you can injure the disc. And then we do a lot of stuff in cheerleading where you bend backwards. That will also irritate the joints. So we're looking at two main areas: joint injuries and disc injuries, and you're still going to have your sprains and strains to the ligaments and the tendons and the muscles.
Awesome. So can you tell me why it's so important to have a strong core as a cheerleader?
So when we've done these other series where we've looked at the ankle, the knee, and the hip, when it comes to the core, one of the things, it's a main, I guess, conduit from the lower body to the upper body. So it's trying to transfer force from the lower body so that you can take that force, take it through your core and through the arms, so that you can maintain the strength from the legs all the way through. So if you have like a soft core or it's slinky or anything along those lines, you're going to lose the force that you're generating from your legs to go out through your hands. So to me, this area is, it's not that it's more important, it's just that it's a different mechanism that we need to strengthen, and it needs to be strengthened a little bit differently than other areas of the body, because it's a major factor in, like we just said, transferring force from the lower body up through to the hands.
So now let's talk a little bit more about spinal hygiene in regards to stability, mobility, power, and strength.
Okay, so I think the first thing we'll start with, and there's a lot of different ranges of motion we can do, but I think the two most important ones are going to be doing the cat-camel and then basically doing a thoracic rotation, just to make sure the spine can move in the directions that it's supposed to. So if we just kind of do that now. So the first one we'll do is the cat-camel. Other people call it the cat-cow. What we want to focus on more than anything else is I want to see you focus on making movements in different areas of the spine as we're doing this. So the first area you're going to focus on is the upper back. So you're going to push that up, and this would be the cat part, and then drop the head down. And then you go back down. So that's kind of the idea, and then you're going to just keep focusing and changing where you're pushing through as you go up and down, and trying not to hold the position, just making a nice fluid motion. And so now you'll focus on here, and then drop down, and then you'll focus on here. So this way we're trying to get the body, if we're going to do a back handspring, we're trying to make sure that the back is moving freely throughout the whole area, just so that we're not getting into problems with a hinge in a certain part of the back, and that can cause irritation to the joints of the back. The next one is we want to try and get the thoracic part of the back moving, so we're going to go lying sideways. Okay, so we're in a hook lying position here. The goal here is that the knees need to stay together, and then what you're going to do is you're going to roll your upper back towards the floor without moving your hips, and move your head with you, and you're going to roll all the way back. Same thing, we're not really looking to hold any positions. This is more of a dynamic motion, just like the cat-camel. And then you just roll back again. And you would look at doing like 5 of these on each side, so you would have to rotate around and do the other side. So this would be the mobility part of just getting the back warmed up to get ready to do your strengthening or before practice.
So now can we talk a little bit more about stability?
So when we discussed ankles and knees, we definitely separated stability and strength. And this one, the stability and the strength, we're going to kind of just put into one group, and then I'll show you some power stuff that we can do for the core after that. So right now, just consider stability and strength for the core pretty much the same. You can add weight to these things to get yourself stronger as well, but for now, I think we'll just show the basics. And I really want people to understand how to do these movements and to do them properly before they start moving on to other activities. So I guess the first one we'll do is the bird dog. Okay, so the idea behind the bird dog is that we need to get into, once again, having good spinal position. So you should have a little curve here. That needs to stay here through the whole movement. The head's going to be straight and flat, so I could actually just be like a table. The idea here is that when you go to, we're going to get you to bring your arm out and your leg out. When you go to do that movement, nothing should move. So the first thing you're going to do is pretend somebody is trying to squeeze you and you're not letting them squeeze in tight. You're going to push their hands out of there. Okay, maintain this position. Now let's bring this leg out and this arm out. And so we should see no movement through the hip. With the leg, you're thinking about reaching towards the wall behind you, not up to the ceiling. So think about being nice and tall. From here, you're still maintaining that strength in the stomach, and there's a lot of different variations we can do here, but you need to get this perfected first. When you come in, I don't want you to put your knee or your hand on the floor. Just brush the floor and come back out again, and the same thing would occur here, no movement. I don't want you holding these positions any longer than 10 to 15 seconds. And then you would do the other side. Now, so this is gonna basically teach you how to maintain your core while you're working the glutes and the shoulder. You can squeeze the fist if you want when you go out in that position, just so you'll lock up the upper body a little bit more as well. And you should make sure you're breathing throughout this whole movement. And generally speaking, you'll do 4 reps on each side. From here, we want to make sure we're balancing out the core, so we're going to do the sides. So let's go into the side plank. Okay. So once again, there's all kinds of different variations for this, but what we're going to choose to do today is we're going to do what's called a scissor stance. So these feet are lined up. You're going to bring your hips up off the floor. I want to make sure your head is straight. So if I was to bring you straight up, you would just be standing straight up and down. Same thing, this is working this side of the body, and you can make this more difficult by lifting the top leg, but right now you need to make sure you perfect this. Same thing, don't hold this any longer than 15 seconds. If you're going to do multiple reps, what you would do is drop down real quickly, rest, and then come right back up again. So you just need to have a 1 or 2 second rest, and then you can do 10 to 15 seconds again. Try not to get into holding these things for a minute or 2 minutes and 3 minutes. You're actually creating too much fatigue and we're trying to work on strength. The next component we're going to do, which is everybody, we were talking about this a little bit off camera. People really make a lot of mistakes on this one. Remember, with the core, we're trying to maintain that lumbar curve, but we want to work the stomach on this, in this case, the abdominal area. So here you're going to have one leg straight, one leg bent. It does not matter which one's bent, you're just trying to stabilize the pelvis when you do this. You're going to place your hands so that they are underneath your low back. This way you're going to be trying to maintain that lumbar curve as you go to do what we call a modified crunch. Some people complain that their neck gets a little bit strained when they do this and they want to hold on to their head. I prefer that they actually just place their tongue on the roof of the mouth behind their front teeth and press there. That'll stabilize the core of the neck, and you should be okay with that. What you're going to do here is you only come off the ground about maybe a couple centimeters. So the goal is to raise your elbows, keep that head nice and tight in here. Don't pitch it forward. Just bring the shoulders, then there you go, and you're going to hold that. So come back up and hold. You should still have that lumbar curve here, and the stomach should be nice and tight. Same thing with everything else. You're going to hold that anywhere from 5 to 15 seconds, and then you will come back down, and you rest just briefly, and then you come back up, and you would do 4 or 5 reps of that. So before we start adding in things that are more difficult, these are the 3 movements that I feel are more important.
And lastly, we're going to talk a little bit more about power.
So similar, I'm just going to make it simple. We're going to use the same 3 exercises we just did, but remember there are lots of different variations you can do, but I think just to get the point across on how I want these things done for power, let's just start with the bird dog again. So we're going to do the same setup again. Make sure you have your good lumbar curve here. You're going to go out into the bird dog position. Make sure this is in a fist. From here, you're going to drop down a few centimeters, and then you're going to come up quick, and you're not going to move here. So all the movements at the hip and at the shoulder. Boom. And it's just a quick little impulse. So you're thinking of just that stomach just makes a quick little contraction. Boom, boom, boom. There you go. Okay, so that's kind of a way to introduce some power into your core. And at some other point we can talk about other things, but for now we'll just keep adding on to these ones. So the side plank, this one can become difficult, so we can do a modified version if we want, but let's just stick to the same one we had before. So you're back into that same posture. What we're going to do here is you're going to make a quick movement up to my hand and then back down, and you're trying not to move anything here. Excellent. Boom. With both exercises, make sure you're breathing. Okay, and same thing, I don't want you in these positions for longer than 10 to 15 seconds. So however many reps you want to choose to make that, just pay attention to the time. For the modified crunch, it's going to be the same thing. One leg is straight, and if you want to switch which one is straight every time, that's up to you. Okay, you're going to lock that tongue into the roof of the mouth. The hands are underneath the low back, the elbows are up, and then you're just basically, it's a really short movement, it's just basically snap. You're just going to come up a little bit, come down slowly, and then go. Go. Nice and hard and fast. Try and make sure that low back isn't flattening out on you. Good. And that's, I think we just want to touch on that point a little bit more. If you really feel like that low back is coming up, you can put a towel there, okay, to also help with that. But the idea here is we don't want to change the position of the low back, because that can become hard on the disc as the muscles are actually compressing the spine. Okay, so it is important that you pay attention to what that low back is doing.
Awesome. So is there anything else we should be aware of as athletes with our core area?
I think there's going to be two things that I want to talk about here. One's going to be, you see a lot of kids going through and doing an exercise like the Superman, where you lie on your stomach and you raise both arms and both legs at the same time. It is a difficult exercise, but more importantly, it's actually pretty hard on the discs of the back and on the joints of the back. So I really think that's something that needs to be done in more advanced stages after you've developed good resilience and toughness to the disc and the vertebrae, because it actually exceeds the capacity of that vertebrae and can cause damage to the joints, where you might lead to a stress fracture at some point if you don't understand how to progress through there. The other component is going to be everything we just taught you today should transfer over to when, like if you're doing a stunt and you're doing a double base, we talked about this a little bit earlier, when you guys are lifting these types and you're rounding out your back, that can actually lead to a lot of problems with the disc. So the other thing of all this core work is trying to show you how to do proper positions so that you can reduce the risk of having these back injuries later on. And that's why I think learning these movements is important, not necessarily how hard you're working all the time, but just maintaining proper technique when you're stunting and tumbling in position.
Interesting. That's it for this week. Next week we'll be talking about concussions and neck injuries.